Ever since the announcement trailer dropped during Sony's State of Play showcase, I was hyped for Metal Eden. The game looked and sounded like Ghostrunner with fast-paced fluid movement and thumping cyberpunk soundtrack, but replacing the katana with an arsenal of guns. This all sounded like a recipe for great fun, so I was very curious to play the game's demo, which allows players to dive into the first 2 missions of the game. It became immediately apparent playing the demo for myself that Metal Eden takes strong inspiration not only from Ghostrunner, but also the recent Doom games. Gunplay gives strong Doom vibes due to visceral animations and punchy weapon recoil across all 3 weapons I got a chance to check out. Metal Eden also features similar health system and game mechanics to Doom. For instance, core ripping, which enables you to target weak enemies and rip the core straight out of them. While holding the core, you can either consume it to regain some health or throw it at another enemy's face. It's up to you. In addition to health gain, consuming the core enables a super punch ability, which can be used to destroy enemy armor. You can also melee push enemies, which puts them into a staggered state like glory kills, and gives a chance to drop health pickups. This comes in useful at weakening armored enemies while your core ripping ability is in cooldown. Most of the game's combat takes place in arenas, which often feature ammo, health, and armor pickups, along with jump pads and wall running panels, so players have plenty of options when it comes to taking on the game's enemies. Even within the first 2 missions, Metal Eden has a good variety of enemy types, ranging from weak dumbasses, ranged drone units, and armoured mechs to name a few. I'm hoping the game has more to offer as the game progresses, but at least from the demo, I found the enemy variety to be good. In between these heavily Doom-inspired combat sections, it should come as no surprise that you're doing some platforming Ghostrunner style. This means plenty of running, jumping, wall running, ziplining, and bouncing on some jump pads for good measure. The game outside of combat feels extremely similar to Ghostrunner, even down to the animations, speed of traversal, and more, but I'd like to add the caveat that the platforming doesn't seem to be as demanding on the player. In summary, Metal Eden can accurately be described as Ghostrunner x Doom. The combination works surprisingly well, but that doesn't mean the game doesn't have issues. The combat design shows a lot of potential, but there are some glaring issues that need attention. Firstly, let me talk about the game's settings, or rather, the lack of them. In a game of this pace, I'd expect to be able to heavily customize my controls to suit me, but this is a bit of a struggle. There is no option to rebind any inputs or any alternate layouts to choose from. The game features extremely aggressive camera acceleration which cannot be altered or turned off, and aim assist is strong whether you like it or not. So although I can see that the core combat could be fun, I found myself fighting with the controls as they were simply not ideal. Trying to make quick turns, which you're going to do in a game with this much action, was jarring to say the least. To give an alternative description, it's like playing a heavily mouse-based input game on controller with zero consideration I'm playing on a console, but will 100% be using a controller and not a mouse because I'm playing on a console. You can play the game obviously, but wow does this need to be sorted out ASAP. Despite its many similarities to Ghostrunner, it certainly doesn't control like that game, and it really ought to. Sadly, it's not just the game's controls that I have issues with, but also the game's visuals and performance. I'll start with the available settings again. Players can choose the game's FOV and choose between quality and performance graphics modes. The inability to turn off motion blur I really didn't like. You move through the game at a high pace, and the game's motion blur did make me feel slightly sick after a while, and I simply couldn't turn it off. On to the game's graphics modes. I don't know what the modes are in terms of settings, resolution, or frame rate target, as the game simply doesn't say, but this information will be useful for players to have. I tried at least one whole level with both graphics modes and found that the quality mode offered both the best visuals and performance. I feel like I was losing my marbles, but this is definitely how it felt. When flipping between the 2 modes, it's easy to spot that the performance mode clearly has a lower resolution and appears blurry by comparison to the quality mode, which looks fine on PS5 Pro, but could still be a little bit cleaner. I'm not sure what's going on with the game's performance, but it doesn't feel as fluid as it should be. The game may feel considerably better with 120Hz support, but with no such setting appearing in the menu at present, and I think this kind of game is crying out for it. Conceptually, I love what this game is trying to do, and I really want things to improve. You can see glimpses of the marriage between Ghostrunner and Doom working out, but unfortunately in its current form, the game's fun factor is marred by poor controls, lack of options, and visual settings that hurt my brain. I'd love to hear in the comments what you thought of Metal Eden, and thank you very much for checking out my video.